They're all gonna laugh at you, Timmy. They're all gonna laugh at you.
Is this because of my horror knowledge, Tommy?
Yeah, pretty much. So, Carrie is coming up next.
Haven't seen it with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevenet. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where we're watching a movie for the very first time. And today that is myself,
Yeah.
Carrie. And this is
As
actually the one movie I chose because I texted Tommy being like, hey, you're going to be really proud of me. And he was like, why would I be proud of you, Timmy? Like, why? And I'm like, I put on Carrie voluntarily. And he's like, I love Carrie. I texted him like right when I was
yeah,
putting it on.
yeah,
You're like, oh, it's a good movie. And he was like, yeah. And then I watched it. And then I was like, we should cover this on the pod. And that's
yeah. It's a
how
great
I
movie.
infiltrated Tommy's month of choice. I
Yeah, you finally got to
manipulated
pick him.
I manipulated him. I manipulated his
You act like you didn't suggest Psycho because originally we were gonna do like I think Poltergeist is one we threw out there, Texas Chainsaw was one I threw out there, and then they're like Carrie, let's watch Carrie, and I'm totally fine with that. I love those other movies. Carrie is great. I haven't rewatched this in a year, so it's been a long time for me, obviously. In my deep heart of watching Carrie, but great fucking watch. Stephen King's first novel, first movie. So
That makes sense. I mean, this is 1976 with a very young John Travolta whose life's about to change after he joins the Church of Scientology, but
yeah,
definitely not because of the year 1977. But regardless, it was a great watch. So we're covering Carrie here, but Tommy, anything you saw recently that would pique our interest?
so as October has kicked off, I've been doing my 31 days of horror challenge where I've been trying to watch a movie, horror movie every single day as I do every year. This is the third year I've been doing it. So I've been watching Signs for the first time. Great M. Night Shyamalan movie. Really liked it. I'm shocked I've never seen it before. But I do want to shout out on this little not movie. I meant to bring this up last week that last month I actually worked for the Connecticut Horror Fest in Hartford, Connecticut, and it was a great time. PJ Souls, who was in this movie, the girl with the red baseball cap, that's also in Halloween. She was at the festival along with other horror actors, like the guy who played Michael Myers in the first one. I had to take care of the guy who played Art the Clown in the Terrifier movies. For any of you slasher fans that know that, I had to go pick up this actor in his full clown makeup in the hotel, and I was just like, one of those surreal moments. I was like, what the fuck is my life? It was really fun, great time, and really looking forward to the next year when we do it again. So
Yeah, that's interesting. That wasn't a movie, but very interesting, Tommy. No, I'm kidding. No, so you had fun. Did you tell any of these people that you were surrounded with about the podcast to get them on?
I casually dropped a few times like, oh, I do have a podcast or something like that. So we'll see how it ends up. But I was running the lines, running the celebrity lines for some people. So it was pretty cool just to go out and just see like all these old actors where I was like, oh shit. Cast of Dawn of the Dead was there, cast of Halloween was there. So
Jamie
big
Lee
bunch of
was
scare.
there?
Jamie Lee was not there. She's apparently has only done one horror festival appearance. I mean, she's a little bit bigger than the tier of some of the Halloween actors that haven't done stuff in like 40 years, let's be honest, but still a
Yeah.
great time.
You mean the woman that just won an Academy Award this past year didn't make it to
Yeah.
Connecticut Horror Fest?
Yeah, I know. Shocker. So, but overall, great time. Great way to kick off spooky season for myself. And I'm still kicking it off with trying to watch as many horror movies as I can this month.
Well, so this was the debate that we had. I'm going to bring this up because I just finished my annual rewatch. Every fall, I rewatch Band of Brothers, which is basically a 10-hour movie following Easy Company, the 501st Airborne, as they land in D-Day in Normandy and their march through Europe. Conquest, and it being a fall show. I think it's a mini series that everybody should watch once in their lives. I don't know why it is just a fall show. It just is. There's just something about that change of the season that makes me want to watch this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a total remembrance of sacrifice and heroism. It's really like a really detailed description of one of the most prolific events in world history and one of the most prominent companies from that war that the people know about. And yeah, it's one of those just like great ensemble shows.
Mhm.
And you made the suggestion, why is it like what horrors in it? And I was like, the horrors of war, Tommy.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I think if you were in the
we
Bastion forest for a month in December getting shelled by the Germans, you might think it's a little scary.
yeah, maybe a little bit right there. So, we're primarily a movie podcast, but if we ever want to transition to TV or miniseries, we could do Band of Brothers. I have still never seen it before.
I would
So,
I would do if we wanted to do it, we could do 10 episodes
yeah,
and we
just
just
make that a season.
no, but the beginning of each episode we just cover an episode.
Yeah.
We do one a week.
We just do one a week where we just casually just drop it in over
This
and
is
over
the
again.
only way I'm going to get you to watch Band of Brothers, to be honest.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some things on the pod where it's just like, I haven't seen like so many classics before. Like, we had to start a podcast for me to watch the fucking Godfather. So,
Yeah, we had to start. I mean, does it help if it was produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg?
Oh, I know the pedigree. I just have never gotten around to watching it. And right now, I'm currently in a streaming battle with a friend where I'm trying to get their HBO Max back. And
It's on Netflix right now.
Oh, it's on Netflix. Oh, yeah, because for some reason HBO is like, fuck our streaming service. David Zaslav was like, we'll just license this out to Netflix. I don't understand it.
David Zaslav is a monster of a human being, and he should be mutilated. I do not like that man whatsoever. I have a feeling that HBO's like status as like the premier TV network is going to go downhill because he's like, we get better views and it's a lot cheaper to make like TLC content.
Yeah, it's just like misunderstanding the audience. I mean, there is an aspect where you could have both, I guess, if like, for the platform, remember, but it's just a way that they're focusing more on the cheaper, easy to produce content and just like essentially just in a way like Wall Street taking over entertainment, where it's just instead about the bottom line, instead of caring about creativity and productivity and just like, overall quality.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's about the status of culture itself and what we produce, right? It's just a representation of our culture and our society. There's been a big thing about like the Oscars kind of diminishing in status, right, over the past decade or so. And I think if you look at the films that were nominated for Best Picture in like the 90s and you look at the top grossing films of the 90s, you're going to find a fairly nice crossover of movies people have seen and movies that are highly regarded by critics. And now it's like in November for the general audience, they just get this list of movies that are now like Oscar movies that they're never going to go see.
Yeah, I mean, for like people that aren't like us, that like fucking like
that's what I'm talking about for a general audience.
Yeah, for a general audience, for people that aren't like us, that fucking feel the need to watch all these movies every year. I mean, even myself, I don't fucking go around to see every single Best Picture nominee. Most years, if I'm lucky, I get like 5 out of like the 10, 6 out of the 10.
And the Oscars has a history of picking subject, I think, sometimes over like quality of film or inventiveness of film. It's like they have this stature of like historical pictures and like timepieces and something that's societal touching, right? So if it's like a gay guy or something like that, like
they're in general, is just like the Oscars are just not known for like, highlighting for the most part genre pictures and stuff like that, where, I'm not exactly arguing that like, we need to have every superhero movie, every Marvel movie be up for Oscars, but like there is just like a limit where you could probably get it. I mean, granted, we just had everywhere,
everything, everywhere, all at once. Yeah.
For some reason, could not think of it, but
it was. I mean, that was a great movie. It had its appeal, but it still didn't like it was an A24 picture, and they don't get the widest distribution and the biggest.
To be fair, that was their biggest hit ever. It made
absolutely. But like this year will be interesting with a movie like Oppenheimer that's set to get like 12 nominations, and a good amount of people have seen Oppenheimer.
Yeah, a movie and I think Barbie is probably going to have some nominations too. Maybe not like top of the line in terms of Best Picture, but there's always buzz about Ryan Gosling. Is he going to get Best Picture Best Supporting Actor?
Best Support Ryan Gosling, like a Best Song. Like I could see set design, something like that for Barbie.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're doing an Oscar previews. This wasn't planned at all.
Yeah,
Just
but
you
speaking of
mentioned
Oscars,
you mentioned the name David Zaslav, and it made me very upset with the current status of our
yeah,
culture, because we have a monster like that who's just about the bottom line and producing like 12 variations of Dr. Pimple Popper, and my ass doesn't work. Like I just I
yeah,
can't stand this
it's
guy.
it's a whole thing. So if we're gonna transition, speaking of genre pictures that were actually recognized by the Academy Awards, Carrie, 2 Oscar nominations.
Carrie, 2 Oscar nominations for what it was Best Actress, Best Supporting.
Yeah, for Piper Laurie as Carrie's mom, and Carrie herself, Sissy Spacek, as Best Actress.
You can't see
And
it right now. I am shaking my Twin Peaks shirt because Piper Laurie is a veteran of the OG Twin Peaks as Catherine Martell.
which character was that? I mean, I've
She
seen the
was
first season.
she was the rich lady who's having the affair with Ben Horn, who ran the town. She had the orange hair. She was married to Pete Martell, the Fisher guy.
Vaguely remember. I mean, it's been a while since I've watched Twin Peaks. Yeah, okay, I remember this now. Yeah, yeah,
Representation, bro.
yeah,
Representation for Twin
yeah.
Peaks right there in this movie. This is Carrie.
If you have a taste for terror, you have a date with Carrie. A new film by Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek, Piper Laurie, and John Travolta in his first motion picture role. If you have a taste for terror, you have a date with Carrie. Rated R.
So I think with Carrie, I think a very good place to start with this movie is the very beginning of the movie, the opening sequence.
Yeah.
One of the more iconic openings in movies that's going
This
to
is
take
something
you
that
by
gets-
surprise. For
Yeah,
sure.
this is something that gets referenced in like Knocked Up and like other studio comedies, where it's just like, holy shit. I mean, I can imagine if you're a 13-year-old kid booting up this VHS back in the day, you'd be like, oh my god, what
Tommy,
is this?
please keep your habits and your stories to
Well,
yourself, bro.
there's a weird thing that, like, some people feel that this is very just like voyeuristic, and in a way it kind of is. But the way it transitions from the girls' locker room of all the girls, just like pretty much the whole female cast just naked immediately from the beginning, and transitioning into Carrie having her first period is just a way of kind of subverting, I think, in some ways, just like the male gaze, and just kind of like in some ways shocking you right there, like immediately.
Yeah, it definitely subverts that, like, oh, what is this? Because like, and like they're all like, they're doing like whatever the ideal male fantasy of a locker room is, like playing around with towels
Yeah.
and stuff. Like, and if you've ever been in a locker room, it's just mostly people trying to change as quickly as possible. It's not whatever a
Yeah.
movie.
People aren't like fucking walking around naked and just like
and
showing
like
off their
grabbing
bits.
each other, and yeah, oh, look at mine, look at your. That doesn't happen in real. Not that I've ever been in a women's locker room, but just like I'm just assuming it's kind of like a men's locker room where it's just a bunch of dudes. Like there's one old dude in a men's locker room that's just letting it all hang out dry. That is true. You've heard that one before. It is definitely true. There's always one dude that's just
always.
He's older and he doesn't give a fuck anymore. And then there's just a bunch of people trying to get their clothes on and get the hell out of there. And I assume the women's locker room's very similar in that respect.
So you watched this movie with your girlfriend. This is how you first watched it. And has she ever seen the movie before?
No. She was like, "Oh, I'm in the mood for a horror film," and I was like, "I've
So
heard good things
up.
about Carrie."
You booted up fucking the girls' locker room scene. Just like, can we just like rent some Cinemax movie?
Yeah, it did not. It started in the first. It was like 30 seconds. Like they're playing volleyball or something, and Carrie misses the ball, and then they're like, "Okay, girls, go hit the showers." But it is also good because once Carrie does get her period and like thinks it's witchcraft that she's receiving it, and she's supposed to be like a senior in high school, so that's very late for a girl to get her period from
there's an undercurrent of this whole movie that just plays off, especially on this rewatch, of just like a tragedy, or the fact that like Carrie's mom is so religious fanatic that she had no idea what the fuck a period was, and she was so sheltered, and in that moment of need of her, she was just so confused, she thought she was dying. People are just making fun of her and be like, "Oh, like you stupid fucking asshole!" Like, yeah, here's a tampon.
They're throwing tampons at her, and then it's the one It's the one coach. Who was the coach? It was Miss
Betty
Collins.
Buckley.
Miss
Yeah.
Collins, Betty Buckley, who empathizes and kind of gives Carrie this warm motherly figure in her life that she definitely does not have at home. Because in the
Yeah.
contrast of it, we get introduced to Piper Laurie, who's playing Carrie's mother, Margaret White, who is a devout like Christian to the extreme, like to the 10th degree, who's going around asking for money from people's family. Like we see, what other kids live like in their houses, and they're more modern. We get to Carrie's house, and it's like a farmhouse with just religious paintings everywhere. I just
Yeah.
thought of the Goodfellas line of like, Mom, please stop painting religious pictures, please. Like that was just that's what that living room looked like.
I mean, as iconic as like the prom scene is of this movie, I mean, like, and probably what people remember the most. I think that the scariest moments of this movie are honestly Piper Laurie, and especially just like when she locks up Carrie into the like closet, this dark ass closet, and just starts screaming and just said like, "You will repent for your sins" and stuff like that. It just hits in a way that is like realistic in a way.
So when Piper Laurie finds out that Carrie had her period, she drags her by the root of her hair into a closet to repent her sins, and talking about whoring. And one of my thoughts was like, you have a daughter, there's no man in the picture. So that means at some point this mother had to have, sinned, if you will, so kindly put it. And then we get that right after the prom scene where, Piper Laurie kind of breaks down a little bit more, even though the intention is to kill Carrie, which is.
And she mentions in that scene where she's just talking about how like, I should have killed myself the second I figured out I was like pregnant with you and stuff like, and things like that. Just like really cutting it to the point that like this woman clearly has been so much shelter and religious fanatic. And I'm not really a person that like knows too much about scripture or the Bible, but according to like, when I was looking up like IMDb trivia and stuff like that, a lot of what your mom is saying in this movie when she's quoting scripture is just like interpretations of the Bible. People are like, that doesn't hold up. That's not really what that
it's just an interpretation of, that's pretty much every religious sect just has its own interpretation of the Bible. I think, when somebody gets to that point, it's usually comes from a place of cultural dissatisfaction. I think for someone like, Carrie's mother, kind of seeing girls being more, it's kind of, you're in the age of, end of that first wave, beginning of that second wave feminism movement, where women are just becoming more empowered in schools, going to more colleges, like actually starting careers. Not that it evened out at that point, that was still a couple of years, that was still
it was the beginning.
And by that it just meant women weren't wearing bras out in public. They were just a little more free with their bodies. And I think that's where that interpretation of the Bible would then come from. Is that kind of disgust of the climate around her.
And it's great that this movie starts off of introducing her character as going to like the house of Snell, Amy Irving's character, and talking to Amy Irving's mom, who actually was Amy Irving's mom in real life. But anyways, just the fact that like the transition of like Amy Irving's mom is more of just like a more modern mom and stuff like that. She's joking around where it's just like, oh, we're all going to total damnation right here. And she's like, oh, I'll drink to that, and just like figuring out just like how warped, and just really drives home a little bit more just how broken Carrie's home life is. Nancy, what's it called? Betty Buckley is just really the one ray of sunshine that Carrie has in her life, the one source of affection that she gets of like, in an ideal world, that would have been her mom, and not, this religious dogmatic fucking person that's just insane. It's just over and over again. Like you watch this movie and just like, it just kind of breaks my heart just seeing it, especially like things like the prom scene of just like before the bucket happens, it's happening. I mean, you've seen the poster of this movie. I mean, to me, as someone that's never seen this, did you know that there's like a scene that Carrie kills people in a prom?
I knew about the book. I didn't know about I didn't know much about the film, other than I we were looking at a horror movie, and then I just saw, oh, Brian De Palma. I'm interested in watching that. Like that was
Yeah.
pretty much my thought process. Is like, oh, this is a good
Yeah.
director. And sometimes you click on like a random horror movie on one of these streaming services, and you just look at the name of the director, and you're just like, I don't know who that is, and I can almost guarantee if I look up their IMDb history, I'm not going to be overly impressed, other than the fact that they got directing jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing I'm going to be impressed by.
So I mean, like, did you know, like, even like the fact that like Carrie gets like the blood spilled on her or anything?
I just knew something happened at a prom. That's kind of all I knew about the movie.
Yeah, and I think that like there's a lot of talks. I haven't seen too many Brian De Palma's films, but he's also often brought up as like a Hitchcock, like not protege, but like Hitchcock was like his big guy, where
like
he's pretty much
influenced by Hitchcock.
influenced by Hitchcock, and like there's the famous quote that Hitchcock has that like tension is really just like if there's a bomb underneath the scene, the characters don't know, but you know it. That's tension right there. And
yeah, and the blood at the blood at the prom was the bomb, and that was brought up by her longtime bully Chris, who the girls were torturing Carrie, so they punished all of them and the coach punished all of them in detention for a week, saying that if they don't follow through, you're gonna lose your privilege to go to prom, and Chris is the only one that leaves. And then Sue Snell, who is dating this boyfriend Tommy Ross, she kind of convinces him to invite Carrie to the prom, feeling bad. And actually, when I think of adding to the tension in this movie, it wasn't made clear until the second before the blood was about to drop if Sue Snell was like actually wanted to support Carrie, or if was in on the plot with Chris.
That's interesting. I mean, like, because I feel like there's a sense of remorse that she gets.
Thought that added more. I thought that added more tension, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
it was played off like remorseful, but then there's that scene with the gym teacher, Miss Collins, and her saying, Sue, why is Tommy asking Carrie to the prom? Like, I just want to help her out. Like, she deserves this. She deserves this. And she's like, you're bullshitting me. Why is this? And like, that kind of lingered in my mind. And maybe it was just like tension that I added on to myself and maybe trying to read into it a little bit too much. But I thought it was just like another thinly leveled layer of things. I was like, oh, I think she's, she actually wants a good thing for Carrie. But then you see her sneak into the prom in her regular clothes, and I'm like, oh crap, she's in on it. And then she's just standing next to the rope the whole time, like watching the ceremony go on. Sue is, and I'm like, oh my god, like she's in on this. And then she like looks up and sees it, and that's when I go, oh, her and Tommy are just trying to do something. Like, they think she's just Carrie's this sweet girl, which she is. Like, that's a real testament to Sissy Spacek. And Emily and I were actually talking about this. Like, you needed the role of Carrie to have such a layer of innocence to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, it could have been like easily a typecasted like typical nerd and stuff like that. And I think that the casting of Sissy Spacek is great because I haven't read the novel, but a novel Carrie's portrayed or like view the way they described it is like she's like just like plump, like overweight girl or something like that, which would be like a little bit more cliche or whatever if that was in the movie.
Yeah, it would be a little more cliched in the movie. I think taking this, like, Sissy Spacek's a good looking woman, kind of, giving her not popular clothes, like not stylish clothes, and kind of, this kind of weird girl whose family just has very strange views compared to everybody else, and kind of
I feel like it makes it more hard.
It makes it more. It brings that heartbreak out, exactly. And
because you get the sense that like if Carrie like grew up in a normal household, if she would have been
one of the girls that was throwing the tampons at her.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's just like brings it a little bit more heartbreaking. And I think that like overall, like the Amy Irving of it's kind of funny. Like, her idea to like make Carrie feel better is, my boyfriend will take her to a prom, and she doesn't ever think, oh, I'll be Carrie's friend.
I listen, sometimes you just need movies to happen, and that was just one of the way of doing it. And it was just more of a like, instilling belief that like Carrie is a beautiful girl and she could have a boyfriend. And I actually thought the prom scene leading up to it, and that's what kind of makes the heartbreak even worse. Like, because it always that blood of pig's gut and John Travolta and what's her name, and Chris, I don't know I can't remember the actress's
Nancy
name.
Allen.
That's right, Nancy Allen.
We covered our movie of hers. Do you know? She's RoboCop's partner.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Dang, I would not have gotten that if you didn't say it. I
Yeah.
would not have
So,
gotten
well,
that if you
because
didn't
obviously
say
in
it.
RoboCop she has like short hair and like
She has short hair, yeah, and it's also like a decade later, so she's gonna look different.
But I just love the way that Brian De Palma just frames that scene, and just like how like constantly just like you go from like the spinning 360 shot of
Carrie and Tommy dancing,
Carrie and Tommy, and
and you even start to see Tommy kind of fall for Carrie a little bit, which I thought was just a great touch to it too, where he's like the whole time being like, I don't want to ask this girl out, like she's weird, like blah 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 blah. It's gonna be bad.
His girlfriend has to convince him. She's like,
yeah, she's like, dude, just ask him out. Like, I'm telling you to ask him out. You're gonna do it. And then you can see him starting to fall for her a little bit. Where he's like, do you really have this curfew? Like, some of us are going to go to this place after, like, we'd love for you to come. And
it's another thing that's just heartbreaking. It just like, the scene itself where it just like shows like how insecure Carrie is, where she keeps on asking like, why'd you ask me what's going on here? And just it really brings you into the moment of Carrie. It's just one of those things in terms of cinematography that like really just envelops you into the character of Carrie right there.
Yeah, it brings you in because you get the sense that no one's really been kind to Carrie, and you get the sense, as we were discussing before, with the relationship with her mother, like her mother regretted having her, and that's like the worst way for a child to be brought up is if the parent dislikes their child. That's not a nurturing thing. So like good things happening to Carrie happens. Like the first moment of like any warmness towards Carrie is Coach Collins like looking in the mirror after Tommy asks her, being like, look at your beautiful smile, like you're a beautiful girl, like of course he would want to ask you out. And I think that it's that kind of juxtaposition, right? And then that leads to that heartbreak where Carrie, with her mind powers that are vaguely mentioned, we see like a little like the light going out in the locker room scene, her flipping the principal's ashtray over, shattering the mirror in the bathroom, right? Like those are the only hints we have of the mind powers, and it's not explained, and I'm really glad it's not.
Exactly. There's a terrible version of this movie where it just would have been an exposition dump where like someone like Carrie's mom would have been like, your dad was a psychic too, and like that's how I got pregnant or something. And like
I am still the virgin. I am still the Virgin Mary. No, yeah, it's just kind of she has them. And it leads to a total rampage. I think the interesting thing was like in terms of it being prevented, or at least the saboteurs being discovered and maybe getting Carrie out of the way of the pig's blood is Sue. They're at the prom, they're doing the announcement of homecoming king and homecoming queen, like right before the basket drops, and Sue is going under the stairs and she sees that it's John Travolta and Chris, and then Coach Collins, who's supposed to be on Carrie's side the whole time, like is pulling Sue out of there. And I guess maybe the interpretation is that like
she thought that Sue was doing it.
She thought that Sue was I don't think she knew that the bucket was there, but I think she was under the interpretation that because her boyfriend won prom king with another girl, that she was jealous or whatever. I guess, but like she was like, no, there's literally somebody about to do something really bad.
No, the teacher had no idea of like what was going on right there of like the blood bucket, but I think that she was thinking that like Sue Snell right here is gonna fucking like prank Carrie in some way. Also, like, hey, you're banned from the prom. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and Sue Snell ends up being the only survivor of the night because it's an absolute slaughter at the high school.
I just love like the way when the blood immediately happens. It's just like the way it just like plays out, just like the whole scene where it goes from Tommy and Carrie walking up to the podium and stuff like that, and it's such a nice and sweet full scene and everything like that. And then once the blood hits, I thought the score like if I remember correctly, kicked out right there.
Yeah,
And no score, right? So it just immediate shock. And the weird, like almost like mosquito type vision where like you see Carrie, just imagine that. I think in my interpretation was that she was imagining people laughing at her. I don't think the gym teacher laughed at whatsoever.
I think there was just the two friends that were in on it laughing.
Yeah, the girl from Halloween at the red cap. She was laughing.
I think just hearing the laughter like set Carrie off, but I think it was that more like, oh my god, and I think for a lot of people, and I'm just kind of getting the sense it was kind of like a coming out of her shell party for Carrie, right? Like nobody in the high school really knew who she was other than the weird girl that just went to the school. She's dressed very pretty. Like people were looking at her. It was kind of a statement for her. And then having the pig blood as like a humiliation. Like I think in her mind, they're all going to laugh at you, right? That's what the mother says to her. And I think she hears the laughter and it just sets her off, and she kills pretty much everybody in the school.
I think that, granted, like, years later, decades later, the reason that this movie plays really well and hasn't aged poorly, it's kind of weird to bring up, but like the fact that it's a girl and not a guy. Because if it's a guy, then like people would be like, "Oh, this gives off like fucking like Columbine vibes or something like that," and shit like that over and over again. But I don't get that vibe.
Well, it's also not guns, and it's also like it's the heartbreak that you feel. Like and the movie does such a good job making you empathize with Carrie throughout the whole movie. And Carrie kind of has this like angelic quality to her, almost this like there's just this fairness, right? And seeing her completely dolled up and beautiful and radiating, and just like it's that spinning scene, that great shot of them dancing where the camera just spins around. It's such fantastic camera work that it almost where it changes for Carrie, where like it's like she lets go of all those insecurities that she's held on to, and it just starts to, like, you notice that little change in that like 5-10 minute window before the pig blood drops, that oh yeah, okay, I'll go to the Hyde or whatever it was, the Kelso. It was the Kelso, which was a nice little pull for the 70s show, huh? Like that little the little like bar spot. It was called the Kelso. And I was like, they probably pulled that name from that 70s show, because that just makes sense, right?
And this is why like the film is such a tragedy, because you feel like if that pig blood didn't happen at all whatsoever, like her life would have been completely different from that night. That would have been her coming out of her shell. Well, she probably would have dated Tommy.
Well, that's where you're wrong, Tommy. Because her mother had very different plans for Carrie when she got home. I don't know if you remember this movie that well. I know you.
The part of the thing is, when her mom like tried to kill her at the end of the movie, I'm not sure if it was her mom knew of anything that happened.
I don't think she did.
That's why her mom was.
Her mom, when she realized something kind of happened, because like she's hiding behind the door, and it's so creepy as Carrie goes in to like wash off the blood in a bath, which I'm just gonna say it. If you're covered in pig's blood, don't take a bath, take a shower. That's just
yeah, exactly. She was soaking in the blood. It's just like you gotta take a fucking long ass shower.
That's 101. You just take a long shower. You don't bathe in pig's blood. That would just be my personal recommendation. But it was the 1970s, and they were living in a farmhouse. Who knows if they even had a shower? And there's just candles everywhere in the house. Like she was going to sacrifice her daughter for disobeying her and abandoning the path of God, like of the virtuous path. Like in her mother's mind, her going to that prom meant that she was having sex that night.
Well, immediately the fact that her mom is pointing out the fact that like, oh, like your dress is showing your pillows right there. And like the fact that Carrie's just like, Mom, they're my breasts. It's a part of my body. Like I'm a woman. Like fucking
you gotta live with it.
Yeah. So it's tricky. I'm not sure if that would have still played out that way. I mean, because you don't know if her mom saw her like come home like just bloody as fuck,
I think she did because she was standing in the doorway. I don't think that I don't think she would have. I don't think the mother would have been that mad about the murder based on everything she'd said. It was way more about everything else.
Mm.
And
So
she stabs Carrie in the back, and then Carrie uses her mind powers to hang her mother like crucify her as the house starts to burn down. Both Carrie and her mother perish that night. And then the one jump scare that got me though was the very end, the last one where
amazing.
it's so good.
Incredible scene. The way that De Palma filmed it apparently was that he filmed it backwards. And this is a scene that I feel like has been ripped off to like countless horror movies.
Yeah.
I mean, Friday the 13th, especially the first one, is notorious for having a scene that pretty much just rips us off at the end of that movie too. But the fact that it's just like so peaceful fucking score, just really swelling and everything like that. Then you get to it, and then you hear all of a sudden just like the string happen, that hand pop out. And what's crazy, Sissy Spacek was actually buried underneath the fucking ground during that scene. She insisted that she had to be it. So they'd be like getting ready to shoot up the shot, and like she would be underground, and she'd be like, all of a sudden they'd hear her like pipe out like, "Are you ready yet? Like, what's going on?"
Excuse me, I can't breathe. My straw is getting filled up with dirt.
So Sissy Spacek was originally like a set dresser and everything like that. Brian De Palma, she was a set dresser for Brian De Palma's previous film. And she ended up getting this movie, and her husband was the art director right here. So Brian De Palma went during that scene, was like, if she wants to be buried, I'm not going to bury her. Your husband's going to bury you. That's on him. That's not me. I'm not
taking that responsibility. I know it's the 70s and you can get away with anything, but he's like, burying a woman alive, that sounds like a lawsuit. I'm handling this is your marital dispute, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was so. And Amy Irving's reaction when she wakes up from the dream, she's kind of like half dreaming.
She's panicked. It was such a good. It was such a good scare.
Her mom, who's actually her mom, was so scared by her daughter like fucking acting like that apparently you can't hear it because like they overdubbed it with like the music or whatever, but like she says like, "Amy, are you okay, Amy?" instead of like her character's name.
That's pretty wild. That is pretty wild.
So do you want to hear something other wild that I don't think you knew about this movie? That we talk about him a lot on the show. George Lucas and Brian De Palma held a joint audition for Carrie and Star Wars Episode 4.
I could see Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, so there's a weird like parallel universe or something like that where like maybe Carrie Fisher played the role of
Carrie, Mark Hamill's Tommy, and Harrison Ford's John Travolta.
William Catt ended up actually there's like some scenes, the guy who played Tommy, of him like actually like you can look up on YouTube of him reading for the role of Luke Skywalker and everything like that, which would have been crazy because like he had such 70s hair.
But so did Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker haircut is like the most 70s thing you've ever seen. Like everything in the 70s is like very distinctly 70s. I appreciate that about 70s films.
It does work, but there's a reality where you had Amy Irving playing Princess Leia, which I feel like could have worked too. But like, it's just a very fun what if, to the fact that like these two movies held auditions at the same time, and both of these movies are still being discussed 40 years later. Star Wars is a little bit more than Carrie, but Carrie still.
I think Carrie should be discussed more because I'm done talking about Star Wars. I'm so done.
Yeah,
I'm so checked out of that conversation, man. Oh my god. I can't do it anymore.
It's just over discussed. It's just like whatever. Like,
they're not that.
I don't
there's
care.
two good ones. The rest of it's not that good, man. You guys got to move on. Like, find something else to play with.
We're an anti-Star Wars podcast. Get that straight.
Except Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. We're pro those.
Yeah, pro those. So we haven't talked about him yet. John Travolta. I mean, granted, his role is pretty much just like a little bully. It's not that deep of a role, but this is really in a lot of ways John Travolta's big film breakout.
This is his first film.
This is his second film. His first film was a movie called Devil's Reign, where he was a minor role in that, and he was known at the time for the sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter.
He was
like
new
the
for
breakout-
Welcome Back, Cotter, and he was playing duty in Grease, but on the stage. He was in the touring act of Grease.
Yeah, so at this point, he was still like, I mean, like he was known as a sitcom actor. And there's one thing I noted when I watched this movie on this most recent rewatch, that like his entrance feels immediately like a movie star entrance.
Oh,
here's
yeah.
here's a guy you're gonna see on screen for years and years. The fact that it immediately starts with that song Heat Wave that I love, and him just fucking solo shot on him right there. I think he's hilarious in this movie, but it's just incredible seeing how like almost immediately it's like they knew like, here's John Travolta. He was second billed in this movie just because of Welcome Back, Kotter, which is
and they just knew, like you could just tell with some guys. I mean, I think this is a nice way to segue into this little next section here, Tommy.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
I think the funny thing is that with this cast, like Sissy Spacek, Amy Irving, Nancy Allen, John Travolta, Piper Laurie, like all of these actors had fantastic careers. Like this is a really
even the bit parts, even the bit
the secretary from Ferris Bueller's in this.
Yeah, she plays in high school, which is so funny.
It's so funny because she kind of looks the same age. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and the fact that we had like PJ Solis from Halloween and Stripes and like all these other movies, it's just like they've really stacked us to the top.
Edie McClurg played Helen in and that's from Ferris Bueller's. And I'm looking at the cast, and she's the last build on the cast thing here below Piper Laurie, because Piper Laurie is going to be the and Piper Laurie, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they added her there just because everybody who watches the movie goes, that's the lady from Ferris Bueller's.
Yeah, they knew that in the 70s.
Because she had like 2 lines in the movies. Like she was,
Well, apparently she wasn't supposed to have lines at all, but she just ended up improvising a lot. And Brian De Palma was like, okay, cool, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. But who do you think? So I'm very torn on this one, because I think Piper Laurie gives a better performance, but I think you need Sissy Spacek to work for this movie to even work at all.
I think the only discussion is really between the two of them. I mean, Nancy Allen is good, and Betty Buckley is good too, but like those are not really what you take away from this movie. I mean, Nancy Allen and
Travolta has his movie star moment, right, where you're just like, okay, yeah, like this guy's going to be big by roughly this time next year. Saturday Night Fever and Grease come out, and the guy's top of the world. But
yeah,
I look at Sissy Spacek. I think other actresses could have done what Piper Laurie did, maybe not as well, but other actresses could have done it. I think Sissy Spacek is like, she's perfect as Carrie.
It's just like such a heartbreaking performance, and the reason that we're able to emphasize it for immediately. I mean, this is a novel that has had 3 adaptations at this point. There's a TV movie in 2002, which I probably not worth discussing whatsoever. And there's a remake that was 10 years ago, actually 10 years ago, I think. To this,
and it had a good, because I texted you about it, because it was like Chloe Grace Moritz was Carrie. It had Julianne Moore as the mother, which I'm like, that's a great.
I haven't seen it.
And should be good casting. But Emily watched it this weekend when I was away. Said it's like a lot more violent, and she enjoyed the original more, and said that the opening scene was a lot more censored. Not surprising.
Yeah. And that's why it's not as good. No, but like it's a movie that like it feels like I'm curious to rewatch it, or watch it rather, for the first time, because it has good cast, like you said. Chloe Grace Moretz, Julianne Moore, Judy Greer, and it's directed by the girl who made Boys Don't Cry, which I've heard is an amazing movie, but I haven't seen. So it sounds like it was good. But when I was reading the reviews right before we started recording, it pretty much just said, yeah, this is a well-acted movie, but it feels just unnecessary because we have the fucking Brian De Palma version.
you have and it's kind of our thing with remakes. Like, Red Letter Media has a very good take on it, where it goes like, take a movie, and this is just going to relate to you because I don't even know these series, but like a film series like Leprechaun, where like all the movies are kind of bad.
Yeah,
beef those up and remake those movies and try to attract new fans. Stop taking like something that's like a work of art and then just trying to remake it for cheap bucks, because it's never going to, it's just a waste of promise talent and work.
Yeah, well, it's like over the weekend I watched Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween for the first time, and that was just the thing where it's just like, I have to appreciate Rob Zombie for the swing of explaining the backstory of Michael Myers, but overall, it's just like this just feels like a stupid retread, and just like I'd rather just watch the Carpenter version over and over and over again rather than this fucking remake right here.
Yeah, I just think I don't know. There's such an empathetic lens in this, and a cruelty from the girls that I don't that feels very believable from the other girls.
Well, in general, the 70s of it all. I mean, one of my notes wrote that I was like, oh, back in the good old days when a gym teacher could slap a bitchy student.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that it just feels a lot more cruel than, and maybe a little bit more real than any remake could, because that's where the empathy comes from, right? Like, this girl Chris just hates Carrie because they were mean to her and she got in trouble for it, and that's the only reason she wants to get back at her.
She's held accountable. Yeah, she's held accountable, and she's like, "Oh well, fuck this person." I mean, like, I feel like if the remake, which I haven't seen, it would probably have a lot more social media involved, where it's just like they uploaded this to YouTube or something.
Yeah, like upload the video to YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you just need to set this in the 70s, like like it's kind of like I saw the thing that's like Nolan reportedly wants to do 2 Bond films and set them in the 50s, and I'm like, that makes sense. Like he doesn't want to deal with cell phones like in a James Bond movie. Like he wants them to be fun.
Yeah, and he also wants to homage like the original movies. Imagine.
Yeah, but you're seeing a lot of big directors, like they don't take on a lot of projects set in the contemporary. They tend to take a lot of projects set without cell phones and stuff, because it just it creates a lot more tension for a story.
Yeah, but anyways, overall, I think Carrie is the winner of like who won, as in Sissy Spacek herself is the winner of who won the movie. And what's her name? Piper Laurie.
I think she had the better performance.
Great performance,
but I think she even had the better performance. I just think you need Sissy Spacek, like I don't know. There's just such an adorable innocence, and just fully embodied in that role, and you really need
being empathetic.
I really think that that's the lasting appeal of this, is that you just want to give her a big old hug and be like, just tell her it's okay, and I think that's the endearing nature of this movie, and what makes the heartbreak that that's coming even worse, because it's it's not going to be that bad when it's going to happen. Oh, maybe she'll stop it. And
the frame of the bucket, and it's one thing on rewatch. I mean, I think I knew it beforehand this was happening, because I watched things like Bravo's Scariest Movie Moments when I was in like elementary school. That's how I got into horror. So I knew of the fact that the bucket thing, but on rewatch, it really just feels so much more heartbreaking. Just
you a big Andy Cohen guy, Tommy?
Yeah. No, but it's one of those things that was just like on rewatch, you just watch it and it's just like, oh god, this feels so fucking big.
Are you a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or New York kind of guy? Or Atlanta or Salt Lake City? Or Orange County or Seattle?
You're talking like David Zavlav's tune right here, because right now representing all the fucking reality TV.
I know. It's just I'm just wanting to say it and then starting rattling off cities, because I'm like, I think there's a very good chance Tommy has never ever been forced to watch an episode of those.
Nope. I like to keep it that way.
Good for you. I've watched like 2 of them, and they were, it's just a deep sigh.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka. Okay.
Tommy, would the tragic film Carrie work as a Muppet adaptation?
So, in this situation, would Miss Piggy be Carrie?
No,
or would it be Janice?
She would have to be Janice.
No. Miss Piggy would be Nancy Allen's.
Yeah, she'd have to be, because she's that's what I was going to say, but you cut me off rudely, Tommy. No. But yeah, it'd have to be. It just wouldn't work. I'm sorry. You need a human being to empathize with in this film.
Would it be that just like you keep Sissy Spacek and then like everyone else is Muppets, so it makes her more of an outsider, where it's like, oh, this is the only human.
You know what? I don't really know if I want to get into the logistics of
Yeah.
the
Well-
Muppets menstrual cycles. So
Well,
I'm gonna pass on this.
So before we transition, I do remember one of the things that like before I saw this movie, like I saw this in college. I do remember like back in the day, I had a Simpsons comic book that was like they used to like release graphic novels of like Treehouse of Horror shit. So they made one that was a parody of Carrie, but Lisa was Carrie instead of everyone else, and just like graphic shit where like you see Lisa get the telekinetic powers and stuff like that and kill everyone right there. So that was how I first knew about this movie.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I don't know if it would work with them. I could see the Simpsons pulling it off. The Muppets are too slapsticky. Like the Simpsons can be when they want to, but it's usually like the Simpsons have a joke on top of that joke that makes the slap. It's like the Rakes in Cape Fear, right?
Yeah.
There's usually a joke on top of the slapstick. So Tommy, review time. Give me a score out of 5.
I think this movie is a classic and one of the best horror movies, and really just kicked off the era of Stephen King movies and Stephen King himself. I'm gonna go 5 out of 5. Amazing performances. This movie holds up so much on rewatch. There's just so many things that just like the cinematography, the performances, the direction in general. 5 out of 5. Perfect.
I'm gonna go 4.5 out of 5. That's just kind of where I see it. Like I think it's a true classic. I don't know if it's necessarily a 5 out of 5 for me, but I really love this movie. I think we didn't talk enough about De Palma's direction, but just the way his camera moved. I think of the scene of like when she gets to the home and we're just seeing the candles everywhere and the way that camera's moving after the prom scene, just like utterly fantastic stuff. Like De Palma is known for his camera movement, but and this is one of his earlier movies, and we really get to see him at full force here. Sissy Spacek's performance was incredible, as well as Piper Laurie. Shout out Twin Peaks. 4.5 out of 5. A true 70s horror classic. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. Tommy, have you seen Scarface?
No.
November.
Yeah. Right there. So
we could probably just do Scarface month. Do like the 1940s Scarface.
Was there a reason why you just thought of Scarface? I mean, it just came to you.
I haven't watched it since like college, and I kind of want to watch it again. And it's a De Palma movie.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I need to brush up on De Palma. I mean, he made Mission Impossible, right?
He did
I've seen
Mission Impossible, right?
I'm looking right now at his filmography. I've seen Untouchables, love that movie. I've seen Mission Impossible. Those are two De Palmas.
Seen Blowout. I've seen Carrie. I've seen Blowout. I've seen Scarface. I haven't seen The Untouchables.
Oh, that's one. I mean, great movie.
Those are the only 3 I've seen. So maybe I think we owe De Palma a little more love. So what if we did like a Scarface, Blowout, Untouchables month?
De Palma. I mean, I'm totally down for that. So.
Yeah. Although I do in November, we should do, because what is it? David Fincher, Scorsese.
We were talking about this. So,
Michael Mann. I think we should cover those 3 on the pod this month or next month, because they all have a movie coming out.
We need to see
Ridley Scott. So maybe we got to go 4.
Yeah, I mean,
what a month! What a year for movies. Movies are back, baby. I love it.
Movies are fucking back. I mean, I haven't seen Gladiator, so we could cover that for Ridley Scott. You just got so fucking excited. I mean, I just rewatched the Alien series. I love fucking Ridley Scott. I've
seen Alien. I love Alien. That's a 5 out of 5. That's his best. I think that's his best movie by like a mile. Give me.
This is how we talk about the podcast. We pretty much just like, usually this is over text where we're just like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
I just got excited. Like I'm excited by movies again, and it's nice that it's coinciding with the podcast. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 for Carrie for me, 5 out of 5 for Tommy. Tommy, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up today?
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media. That's at Scenic Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and the good old Threads. We're on Twitter mostly. Not really.
You just
Threads.
do it to troll me now. I know.
Yeah, I know it totally is. I mean, I still occasionally post on there, but I don't really check it. But anyways, leave us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps out the pod. And next week rather, we are covering Psycho, a movie that Timmy's never seen.
It's 2 weeks from now, right?
2 weeks from now. Sorry, yeah, 2 weeks from now we're covering Psycho, a movie that Timmy's never seen. It's the only Alfred Hitchcock movie I've seen before we started the pod. Also, Birds. I've seen Birds before, but
we covered that on the pod.
Yeah,
we're getting back into the hitch of Hitchcocking.
Yeah. So get ready.
Does he have a Christmas movie?
I'm literally about to Google right now. So this is also behind the scenes Xmas Hitchcock movie.
Okay. Well,
back for Christmas.
Perfect. Well, everybody, thank you all so much for listening today. We'll see you next time.